So, whereas again, look at what Jesus' answer was. John 10. The Pharisees, the Jews came to him and they were going to stone him. All right? And I'm going to paraphrase the account, but essentially refer to it, I think, accurately. And he said, well, why are you stoning me? What have I done? And they said, we're not stoning you for something you've done. We're stoning you because you, even though claiming to be a man, make yourself a god or God. Let's just say either or for now. Okay. So here you have Jesus. Now, in Trinitarian's view, he's the Son of the Trinity. He's in the Trinitarian view of God, he's the Son. He knows exactly who he is. He knows why he's there. He knows who they are. So he understands everything. He's God the Son in their view. What was his answer? His answer was, is it not written? I said, you are gods. And he's quoting Jah speaking to the other gods there. And it doesn't matter if those gods in Psalm 82 are angels or human judges. It makes no difference. Because Jesus is the one who cites the text. If that's not Greg Stafford citing this text and saying, well, this is what it means. I'm just reading what Jesus does. It's not like John 10. We'll set aside the God or a God part of John 10 for now. Other than that, there's no translation problem here. There's no issue, no difficulty with the text. So Jesus clearly refers to Psalm 82 and says, if he said this, then why is it a problem if I said that? If these sons of God, against whom God's word came, can be called gods. Now notice he uses the term gods. He doesn't refer to them as persons or make a difference in order to avoid polytheism between person and being, right? I mean, this is the Son of God. Who more than God the Son would preserve the right understanding of a text that God the Son is quoting to defend his identity? He's quoting a text that refers to other beings. Beings, persons, same thing. He's not differentiating. It's a plural. Gods. As gods in a sense that he doesn't deny. And then says, if this is okay, what's wrong with me claiming to be the Son of God? So in his mind, it was the same thing as well. Claiming to be the Son of God was the same thing as what they were saying he said he was, a God. Trinitarians will say he was claiming to be God, but that makes no sense. Zero. To then quote Psalm 82 and the use of gods to explain why it's okay for you to call yourself God. Well, the Jews would have just looked at him and said, well, listen, we're not talking about the false judges or the God or whatever. We're talking about you claiming to be God. That text has nothing to do with God. That has to do with God. That would have been the easy comeback. And it would have shown that Jesus was quoting a text that didn't have anything to do with what they were accusing him of. That's not what happened. That's not what he did. He quoted the text that answered their accusation and showed that he was correct. Simple. That's it. Now, how far beyond that do you want to go? How far beyond that do you want to engage with someone who won't accept that? To me, I don't know that you can make a lot of progress with someone who's not going to accept Jesus' own defense of himself by referring to a text that says exactly what we're talking about. That sons of God can be called gods, and that even Jesus is a God in the sense that he's the Son of God. To me, it's very simple. And I don't mean to be, I understand it can be complicated. And at one time it was, because you have to go through these different questions and these different translations. But when you spend as much time as I have with them, you realize, well, wait a minute. These texts were pretty simple. And it's not like this is Plato or Aristotle I'm dealing with here. This is an account of a figure who taught in fairly plain language. Yes, there are some things that are a little bit difficult or, not as easy to understand as they were back then. But those are very few, in my opinion, and this is not one of them. The text itself answers the question that's so often asked us. Why do you guys promote? We're not promoting polytheism. We're promoting the biblical view of being a son of God. And how you can either be your own God like Satan and these other demons, or you can be Jah. You can be, like Jesus, a son of God who represents his Father, who does his Father's will, because there's no one better than Jah. There's no one else to be. And that's the choice these spirits have. Be their own self or be Jah. And what greater honor and glory could you have than Jah allowing you to act like him and be considered him because you do it? Exactly right. So these accounts, I think, if you look at them more carefully and you simplify it and you get beyond a lot of this discussion, you start talking person and being, you're going to have a long day, because the Bible doesn't talk that way. The Bible doesn't make those separations. And like I said, Jesus' quotation of the account in Psalm 82 is directly contradictory to any attempt to try to say that when he's called God, or when it says like in John 1:1, he was with God, that means they substitute, they take out the being word, God. That's a being, right? Even to them, one God. So he's with God, and they say, well, that's the person of the Father. Being or God becomes person of God. I've talked about this many times before. But they're just not understanding the biblical use of the term God. And I'm giving Trinitarians a pass. I'm trying to move us beyond the older discussions. I know it's a tall order, but I'm going to try. Because I think if we don't, it's going to be used against us continuously by non-Christians. And so I'm trying to simplify it for us, and I'm trying to keep us from engaging nonstop with Trinitarians that will push us out of these texts and into these discussions of person and being. They don't know what things are like in the spirit realm to the extent that they can define metaphysically a person or a being in that sense. If it's not expressed in the Bible that way, you better be very careful about claiming you understand the metaphysicality of something that's not taught that way. So what we are taught is in Hebrews chapter 1 is that Jesus is in the Son is the character of the Father's being. It uses the word for being there and says Jesus is a copy of his being. And so that obviously indicates generation. But the